Hi, friends, and welcome to the Spiritual Embodiment podcast. I'm Samantha Redondo, your host, licensed therapist, and embodiment coach. And this is a podcast where we explore the intersection of spirituality and embodiment, or said in another way, where our what meets our why. So, where our physical, lived bodily experience of life meets our grander purpose, meaning, why are we here? What are we for? Kind of questions. And I am just delighted to be with you today to talk about this idea that has been on my mind lately. And I've mentioned some of this in the podcast before, but I really wanted to flesh it out with you here in this episode because it tends to be kind of a core theme that comes up a lot with clients, especially those who have grown up in high control religion or spiritual environments where there was kind of like a guru or, person in the front leading that had the wisdom, had the secret knowledge, had kind of the plan, the formula, if you will. And how that just shapes our thinking and our mindset, even after we've been away from these organizations and churches and systems for years. And this is the idea of ritual versus formula. And that is kind of like how I've come to describe it. There's probably other ways of thinking about this kind of mindset or thinking, but that's kind of the terms that I've coined that make sense to me and also make sense to the clients I work with. And so I'll start with a story that kind of highlights how this is coming up for me lately, and maybe that you'll connect with as well. So recently I've been doing some personal work around money when it comes to mindset, to even like the practical, like budget, systems, engineering that I have around my personal finances. And I'm someone who, like, when I started my business, I really did my research. I looked into, the best bookkeeping for me. I looked into the best business system to manage my money because I really wanted to be a responsible business owner and like know how much I was making. And I had been a part of group practices in the past that I felt like didn't have super fair pay structures. And so I had already researched that as a therapist, what do I think is fair, and what kind of practice do I want to have? What's worth paying for? What's not? When it comes to like having a physical office space or paying someone to do your bookkeeping or, paying for different subscriptions and things that you might need as a business owner. And so I'm very like strategic and love kind of the systems and engineering behind my business. But when it came to my personal finances, it's kind of a mess. Like, I don't have those systems and that engineering in place. And I was really, really avoidant about it. So, always had enough to cover the bills, but it felt like every month, any extra money we had, it was just like, where does it go? I don't know. Like, it feels like we're always just like making the credit card payment, paycheck to paycheck, but there's not much going in savings. There's not much extra, and we don't know where that money's going. So I had a bit of a, to borrow Christian language, a come to Jesus moment, an epiphany, a sobering up of, okay, it's time to really sit down with my personal finances and figure this out. And so in the past few months of kind of doing some research, and this is something I've like tried and then would fall back into old patterns again and again throughout my adult life. But in just the past few months of trying to find maybe some resources that would be helpful, I discovered a business, well, she's kind of a business coach, kind of like a finance coach who has a pretty big following on social media and makes good money doing this. A lot of people trust her. She has a lot of great testimonials. And like, I so appreciate the work that she does. Like, I'll actually link it, in the show notes, because I think she has so many free resources that like I have really benefited from. And so, this story has nothing to do with like her work or, or the quality of it, because I think it is very good. It's more about my personal process, that just like exposing myself to her work and kind of figuring this out for myself brought up in me, right? So I did I listened to her podcast. I did a free workshop she did, which was really helpful in just identifying like, what are my blocks with money? What, whether it's mindset or like energetic or more of the like engineering, systems, budget side of things. And she really talks about both, which I appreciated. And her kind of remedy for a lot of this is nervous system work, which is my expertise. That's what I do with clients. It's what, is built into my life in a lot of ways. And, it just kind of hit me like, wow, I have so many of these tools already. I know so much of the neuroscience behind working with the nervous system, using somatic tools. And like, that's what she mainly teaches people to do. And I've never applied it to my money. I've never applied it to like working on a budget and like using these tools. So I will say her work was revolutionary for me in that of just connecting those dots and going, oh, I really need to like help my nervous system out when it comes to money, because that is an area that is just very activating for me. And so after this free workshop, like most creators and business people who do group programs, part of a free offering is to get people to sign up for your paid offering, right? That's just like basic marketing. And so I wasn't surprised by that, but really at the end of this free offering was like listening to, the marketing pitch for the paid offering. And I was like, oh man, like that's the ticket. That's the thing that like I really need to do. Like I've been so stuck in these areas for so long. So the marketing got me. Like I was all in, like, okay, this is the program I need. This is like the person who's going to finally be the one to unlock my money stuff, to help me make the money I know I can make, to provide for my family, to have our dreams happen. Like even just the energetic stuff will help like my husband make more money. I was just like so bought into all the stories, all the testimonials, which are real and true. And I totally believe, like, I don't think this person is bullshit. I think they really do help a lot of people. And I noticed like I really wanted to just sign up for it and not talk to my husband about it. And I felt like, I don't think this is their goal, but I felt like that was almost like encouraged. Like if you feel this in your gut, like you should just do it. Like your spouse will get on board once they see how much money you're making. And that was a little bit of a red flag for me, if I'm being honest, a big red flag. But one of the like key areas that was revealed to me in the free workshop was like financial secrets. Like that's something that can be an energetic block. That's something that isn't good for the engineering of your finances. If you're like keeping secrets from your spouse or your partner or like a family member that you share finances with. And so I was like, okay, like I really need to talk to my husband about this and like make sure we're on the same page. Because if I just like pay for this high ticket coaching program and he's like, what the heck, like that's not serving our financial goals. Right. So I was really clear on that. And so talked to him about it. And like through the conversation, we got to the point of like, yeah, this isn't a good time to have this like big cost, even if it is for financial coaching. Like that's just not a smart move for us right now, maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year, but like right now, that's not the right move. And I think I knew that deep down, but there was just this part of me that really, really wanted this to be the thing. And that's what I want to talk about today, is that part and what happened next. So I was a little frustrated and disappointed getting off the phone with my husband after we talked about this. And even though I think at my core, I was like, I know he's right. I know that we can figure this out. I know so much about the nervous system stuff that she teaches, probably more because she's not a therapist and she, doesn't have all the training I have in somatic therapy and as a trauma therapist and all of that. There was a part of me that knew we can figure this out on our own. And I think I can take kind of her system, her model that I do think really will work, and almost do my own DIY with it, because a lot of the stuff she's teaching, I have access to that already. I just need to kind of connect some of those dots and put it all together. And the other key piece is like the community piece, which I'll talk more about later, of just like being in a community of people holding you accountable, supporting you. You feel less alone in it. But I wasn't willing to risk, my relationship with my husband, like our financial situation right now, just to do this thing to get, those things I listed, when I can find other ways to get them. So there was a part of me that knew that, right? And maybe we could call that like my higher self, my adult self, my core self was like, yeah, like this is figure outable. This is not this impossible problem that she only has the answer to. Like I have a lot of resources and I'm actually really well set up to not have to pay that much money to figure this out. Like there's other ways I can do it. But after that conversation, just having the disappointment of, oh, I can't do this thing that I thought was like the thing that would save me, the thing that would get me out of my financial stress and blocks. This part of me that felt like a lot younger, so maybe we'll call it like little Sam, this part of me that was young and felt very insecure and very scared got activated at the end of that conversation when we got off the phone. And even though we had this plan of like, we're going to work on this, it's figure outable, we can do this together, but we're not going to do this program, that little part of me kind of threw a tantrum. And what I mean by that is I felt in my body a lot of activation around like my throat and my stomach, a lot of anxiety, a lot of wanting to like run away and hide, a lot of overwhelm and overstimulation, of just like, I always describe it as like feeling swirly. So it's just kind of like, I'm so overwhelmed, I can't think straight. I feel like I'm circling the drain. I feel like something really bad's going to happen. I mean, it's just kind of textbook anxiety, like spinning thoughts, ruminating, increased heart rate, hard to breathe, a lot of kind of like tingly pent up energy in the body. And this kind of escalated into a full blown anxiety attack, where later that day, I just, couldn't help soothe this part of me, and ended up, very tearful, like crying a lot. I ended up calling my best friend and she held really beautiful witness and space for me. And I'm so grateful to have people in my life who can do that really well when I need it. But I was just so surprised that even though my logical brain knew there were answers, there was a way forward, I wasn't alone in it, this younger part of me just freaked out, just had this full on panic, and kind of got to a really dark place as well, of like that there's no hope. Like this isn't figure outable. I'll always feel like this. I'll always be stuck in this way. And when I got curious about that after kind of the big emotions and my friend supporting me in that, I was able to see like, wow, this part of me really wants to be rescued. Like she really wants someone to come in and save the day, to just get her out of this pain and discomfort and stuckness, to make it all better, which, I think that's a human desire and emotion. Like that's not a bad thing to want to be saved, to want to kind of have an easy button to be able to get out of pain. Like that's actually a big like evolutionary drive. It's like pain end now. Like that is a strong drive for many of us, which is why we medicate and numb and escape. It's getting out of pain and discomfort. That's not a fun or sustainable place to live. And this young part of me was just like, I cannot handle looking at my finances, feeling this stuck and trapped. And I just want someone outside of me who feels bigger than me, smarter than me, stronger than me, better than me to rescue me. And, I'll finish up where that story kind of ended up later. But I say all this to highlight this dynamic that I see in a lot of clients, and I obviously see in myself, for those of us who were raised in high control religion or in spiritual environments or other organizations that really had this like guru, leader in the front, kind of pulpit centric, if you will, environment where there was one person or one group of people who kind of had all the answers. They had the secret knowledge, the wisdom, the plan, the formula, to guide our lives, to tell us how to live a good life, how to be successful, how to do it God's way, how to avoid hell and get into heaven. I mean, there's some pretty high stakes messaging around the person who knows the right way. And so that's like, I say that to highlight how powerful that messaging is, especially if we're young, especially if, we grew up in these environments and from a young age, we're hearing like, there's this really scary place where you will burn for eternity. And here's the way to avoid that. Here's the way to get out of pain and discomfort forever. Follow this formula, follow these rules, do as I say, do as the Bible says, do as your youth group leader says, do as your parents say, whoever it was who held that power. And even after we deconstruct or leave that environment or find a new environment that's more aligned spiritually, some of that like original programming, those original kind of schemas or systems of thinking that we grew up with can stick around and can stay in parts of us that maybe we're disconnected from or we haven't revisited in years. And then at times they may get activated, just like I experienced a few weeks ago, where that little part of us is full on in our body, taking up lots of space, full on in our emotions, taking up lots of space, being loud. And we're like, where is this coming from? Like, what? I know this is fine, but like, why am I freaking out so much about this? And if we can have some of the like tools and support and awareness to get curious about that part, it can give us lots of really great information, probably about our upbringing and some of the messages there. And also, maybe information too about why we're stuck in this area. Maybe this little part of us is the one who's in the driver's seat. And that's why everything has felt like the sky is falling or like a big deal when really it's not. Or even if it's a big deal, it's figure outable. So I think for me in this experience with looking at my finances, this little part of me really wanted a savior, really wanted someone who was, I always say bigger than me because that's like how it feels energetically, is like someone who just knows better, someone who has more experience, someone who's like the adult in the room, which like, yes, I'm a grown ass adult, but it's like that feeling, that felt sense of like, oh, there's an adult here. Okay, I don't have to do it. It's like, I don't have to be the one holding the responsibility. They've got it. Which that's a real need, especially for like the eldest daughters or the, those of us who carry the mental load of the family or the helping professionals. Like, we do hold high responsibility, and sometimes we just need someone else to hold us and to hold all of it. So I want to validate that like that is also a real need. And sometimes we do need another adult in the room who can hold us when we're at our max capacity, burnt out and done. But I do think there's another side of this where when this young part is in the driver's seat, we can give our power away to people and to systems that we deem are bigger, better, smarter, more capable than us, when actually we already have everything we need to figure it out. We just haven't seen it that way yet. We haven't had that part of us, that young part of us, soothed and taken care of and held, which I'll talk more about how we do that. And like maybe they can sit in the back seat while our adult self steps into the driver's seat in this area. And so one way that I talk about this with clients is when we're looking for that person outside of us, when we're looking for the guru or the pastor or the, leader to give us the answer, give us the formula, give us the right way to do things, we're outsourcing our knowing. And what I mean by knowing is like that part of you that knows what's true, that part of you that knows what's good for you, what's in alignment, what's, your values and what's important to you. And you've probably connected with this part, maybe when you're making a big decision and you just like knew, yes, that's the thing. Maybe you knew it was your person. Maybe you knew it was the right job for you. Maybe you knew, I don't know how this is all going to work out, but I just feel like I need to move. That's your knowing. That's your own like self-trust. And some of us are really connected to that voice and that part of us. Some of us, that feels really hard to access at different points in our life. But that's kind of our own internal barometer, our own internal wisdom that every human has access to. And so when we outsource our knowing and our wisdom, we are looking to someone outside of us to give us that sense of rightness, knowing, wisdom, like to really give us our yes or our no, to tell us what to do. And there's a comfort in that. There's a ease in that. There's a, like a relief of, I don't have to be the one to hold this, to figure it out, to, be responsible for if this goes south or not. It's kind of nice to, even unconsciously sometimes go, well, if this doesn't work out, it's not on me, it's on this person. And like, I can blame them. We all do that. So like, there's no judgment in saying that. Like we all will blame to get out of that pain or discomfort, right? Like that's one of our strategies that we can do to get out of really hard situations or to make it feel more palatable for us to get through those moments. So, when we're looking for someone outside of us to save us, this can be rooted in maybe a lack of connection to ourself or self-trust, which if you've listened to some of my episodes about my religious trauma story or, what disembodied spirituality looks like my first few episodes, a lack of self-trust is kind of bred into some of these high control religious environments, because when people trust something outside of themselves versus having that self-trust, they're easier to control, right? So like when you're trusting a system, when you're trusting a formula, and you're not listening into that voice of your true wisdom, of your true knowing, you're going to go along with the crowd. You're going to go along with the leader, and there's not going to be as much pushback of like, wait, this doesn't feel right. Or like, my intuition is telling me to go this way, but you're telling me I have to go that way. Like, what do we do here? There's less like of the questioning, of the challenging, of the accountability really for leaders and for the system to have to address the questions, address the critical thinking, address the need that people have to understand, like, is this actually the best choice for me? And to have that autonomy, that freedom to make their own decisions. So when we're raised, or we have spent a lot of time and had a lot of like meaningful experiences in these environments, we can lack some of that connection to self. And especially if we've like trusted in the formula and really given ourselves over to, the leader, the guru's plan for our lives, and then experience that disillusionment of like, wow, this is not working. I talk about that in some of my story episodes of being disillusioned by the formula and saying like, this is not working for me. This is a lie. I was lied to about, this happy, successful, godly life, doing all these things to get what I wanted. And the formula actually doesn't work. But we can still have areas of our life where we kind of have internalized that thinking. And that's what I realized in looking at my finances and dealing with some of my avoidance is like, oh, I've internalized that there is like one right way to figure this out, and I don't know what it is. Some of my own like learned helplessness of like, this is not figure outable, but there's someone out there who gets it, who has this hidden wisdom. And if I can just like pay them money to tell me what to do, then all my questions will be answered. All my dreams will happen. That'll be the ticket to get me where I want to go. And so this moment was really this crossroads for me of, am I going to continue down this path of outsourcing my own knowing like I experienced as little Sam? Or am I going to go on this new path that I have been building in every other area of my life, with my body, with my relationships, with my relationship with myself, with my business, of trusting my own knowing, trusting my connection to self and the relationship I built with myself to figure it out, to know I have the capacity, I'm capable to do hard things, to learn new skills, to figure out a way forward, to soothe and regulate the parts of me that are freaking out and, having a big reaction and feeling a lot of feelings about something because it's uncomfortable and painful to do. I have those skills and I have that support and community and people who believe in me to help me go through those tough moments. So can I choose that path in this area that, right now is feeling really big and overwhelming and like I just want to have somebody tell me what to do. So, this is kind of the difference between formula, outsourcing our knowing, and what I like to call ritual or cultivating our self-trust and knowing. And why I kind of juxtapose formula and ritual is because ritual, in the way I'm thinking about it, is a container or a holding space where we can create the environment to connect with ourselves, to build awareness around what our own voice and what our own knowing sounds like, looks like, feels like. And it's something that we can show up to consistently to build that trust. So really all that accessing our internal knowing, our voice of our true self, really all that is building a deeper relationship and trust with yourself. And like any relationship, how do we do that? How do we build relationship? How do we build trust? So I always talk to clients about like, if you meet someone new who you're like, ooh, are we friends? Is this friends? What, like, I want to get to know you more. I like hanging out with you. Like, what do? We're curious about them. We reach out and like ask to spend time with them, and we show up and make space for that, right? We ask them questions. We do things that like we might both enjoy. And so these are just like the basics of friendship, relationship, right? That like we all know how to do on some level. And so what might it be like if you're kind of in this place of, I want to strengthen my own self-trust, I want to strengthen my own knowing? What might it be like to kind of friend date yourself? So get curious about yourself. What do you like? What do you not like? What feels good? What doesn't feel good? What are your values? What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? These are like kind of some basics that you might be like, well, duh, I know what I like and what I don't like, but maybe you apply it to an area like what feels good about my finances and what doesn't. Like I've never asked myself those questions before. How do I know it's a yes and how do I know it's a no when it comes to financial decisions? Oh my gosh, like I could tell you what my yes and no feel like in so many areas of my life, but when it comes to finances, blank. And so even if we feel like we have a level of self-relationship and self-trust, maybe being curious about areas of our life where we're a little less embodied, we're a little less connected to ourselves. It could be really helpful and really cool to build some of those skills. So, really like ritual is all about practice. So it's about showing up consistently over time. That's what builds trust with ourselves, whether it's another person or with our own relationship with ourselves. And so one way we can do this is through parts work, or said another way, there's a therapy modality called internal family systems. And really the idea behind this, like you don't have to be trained in this to do this work, but another way we talked about it is reparenting. So there's kind of like these different ways within therapy to think about building a relationship with yourself. But through this lens of parts work, one way we could think about it is like if you're deciding what to make for dinner and a part of you is like, let's just order takeout, let's just get Thai food. And the other part of you is like, oh, but I just went to the grocery store and I'm trying to eat healthier. And so like, I really should just make the chicken that we have in the fridge. So a part of you wants takeout, a part of you wants to eat healthy and make the chicken. Like that is essentially parts. So there's different parts of our personality that might want different things at different times, that might have a different experience at different times. And there's also parts of us that might have like a different age that they're associated with. So like they might be just like how we talked about traumatic memory, that it's not linear, but kind of happens in these like snapshots of time. And so parts of us might have, been through a more traumatic experience, even if it's like micro trauma or chronic trauma, where they almost like get stuck at a certain age. So when I talk about little Sam, that's a part of me that experienced overwhelming events in my life. And so it's almost like that little part kind of got tucked away inside my psyche, inside my personality, and is like that age when that experience happened. And so we can think of, what might be coming up for you as you hear about this is DID or dissociative identity disorder. That is like a very extreme, kind of dramatized. We often see it in media as like very extreme and dramatized. But version of parts, right? Where these parts are very distinct. They might have different voices, they might have different names or even like personalities to them. And they don't know about each other often when we see this like portrayed in the media, or these extreme examples. But every human has different parts of their personality that can show up at different times. So like rage could be a part of our personality. Depression could be a part, where that's kind of how it shows up. I'm not saying like depression is always a part if you just struggle with depression, but, that could be if like out of nowhere, there's maybe a part of you that's just like really, really sad all of a sudden, or really, really angry all of a sudden. It might be a part that's showing up. And so like we can be curious about that and work with that. And so one of the ways that really is helpful in parts work is building that connection to our core self. So what is the part of you that feels curious, connected, calm, creative? This part of you that knows that internal knowing, this part of you that trusts that everything's going to work out. The adult part of you, the steady part of you, the grounded part of you. I'm sure all of us can think of times when we felt really connected to that part. And so if we build rituals around sensing into this part of us, strengthening our bond with this part, when another part that's maybe a little more volatile, a little more, activated, younger, out of control, whatever it feels like to be in that part, we can then kind of almost step out of that part's experience and watch it as an outside observer. And that's where parts work really starts to happen. That's where reparenting starts to happen, where I can see, oh, there's little Sam is here. Like she is having a moment. She is having a freak out. She's, in a full tantrum right now. But adult Sam is also here. And she can comfort and she can be curious and she can witness and ask questions. And often how I do this is, literally by talking to myself. And, if anyone were to see me do it, it might look crazy on the outside, but truly we are relational, right? How we know ourselves is through a relationship, through our mirror neurons. And even inside of us, we have relationship with ourselves. And all of these parts of us work in relationship with each other. And so by being connected to my adult self, I can help soothe little Sam and maybe give her the things that got missed for her developmentally when she was that age, 5, 6 years old, whatever age we're working with. And then she can have a new experience of what it feels like to be overwhelmed, to feel stuck, to feel like I just need someone to save me. And then, oh, someone bigger than me is actually here to help me. And it's me. It's my adult self. She is also in the room and she has so much resource. She has so much support. She's connected to community. She's connected to her own knowing. She has just this well of internal resource. Oh, okay. So maybe I don't need this guru over here to rescue me. Maybe I don't need this formula to give me the answer. Maybe I can trust that adult Sam might be able to figure this out. And that's kind of where you start to see that cascade of like dots connecting and things becoming more clear. And that part of us that's in like full on panic, freak out mode start to be soothed, start to come down that wave of activation and really find some regulation and settling on the other side. The other thing I wanted to say about ritual is these practices take us from being a consumer to being a creator. And what I mean by that is when we're outsourcing our knowing and we're always looking for the next person who's going to have the answer that gives us the life we want, who's going to solve our problem, who's going to give us the formula, the steps that we can do to make it all better, we're always consuming. So I meet people like this all the time where they're always going to retreats, always going to workshops, always buying like the next training, even therapists who are always like going from training to training, getting more and more, thinking like this will finally make me a good therapist or I'll finally make money once I have enough training. And like, it is such a slippery slope. Like as I told you from this story, like I struggle with this too. I have been there. And what that really turns into, though, is we're just consuming information. And often, unless we're really, really intentional about it, we're not giving our brains and our bodies and our whole systems time to metabolize and integrate that learning. So what we know from research, from neuroscience, is like most of learning is not just information based. Like we can have a lot of knowledge, but unless we know how to practically apply and use information, it's not really sticking. Like it's kind of like having a dusty old library full of books that like you've never really read or understand. Like you might have a lot of kind of like head knowledge, what we would call, but you don't have that like practical lived knowledge and information that like you can then use those skills. And that's why I love experiential therapy, because it really takes us from just like the head knowledge place of psychological learning and like insight to that experiential, like I actually know how to do something different behaviorally that changes everything. Like that is the change people are looking for when they're coming to therapy. And the same is true when it comes to our spiritual practice, when it comes to our finances, our businesses, our, self-care, self-help, like whatever area you are wanting to see change in, you are wanting fixed, you are wanting a solution and like a breakthrough in. If we're just going from person to person, from guru to guru to try to find the golden ticket that's going to get us to where we want to go, most likely that's not going to happen. Sometimes you luck out, you do get a breakthrough, you do get an epiphany, but if on the other side of that, you're not doing the work to integrate that, you're not actually building the patterns and the pathways and the practical skills to learn how to live into that new mindset or to transform your behavior in alignment with that new insight, you'll probably end up back in the same pattern of going back to that guru or going to some other workshop that you think will do it, of like, oh, this worked last time, I'll just go to the next one. And I host workshops. I love a retreat. I love a workshop. I love learning from other people. I've had many coaches and therapists for many things. So I'm not saying like you don't need anyone. You don't need a teacher. You don't need another person to train you or teach you anything. I think we do need that. Like there are seasons of my life where I have been a learner. Like I have been in beautiful coaching containers, beautiful training containers for therapy that have absolutely transformed my life. And then I have had to follow that up with times of integration, times of almost being a hermit of like, I just want to be in my own energy to figure out like what from this beautiful thing that I've been given is actually mine. Like, how do I make this thing that this person has created and taught me my own? And that's that process of integration of like, how do I get this into my body, into my nervous system, into my daily practices, and not just like more information that I paid money for. And so that's how like ritual and these practices can take us from this consumer place with information, with self-help, with, all of these things that are marketed to us constantly on social media and wherever else you consume marketing, to a creator. Because when we're building relationship with ourselves, when we're accessing our own body's wisdom, our own self-knowledge, that's where creativity comes from. That's where these like pings of inspiration come from, where you have an idea that you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. But like, as I'm like thinking through these things and I'm really like practicing them in my life, all of a sudden I have this new perspective. All of a sudden I have this like new ability to do this thing that I was so stuck in before. And so, that's why I think ritual can be such a beautiful alternative to this like formula or like guru centric way of knowing. And I also think the way that we can access our knowing, the way that we can build these rituals is through the portal of the body. So the body can be a doorway into our knowing because it bypasses our prefrontal cortex, logical thinking mind that is kind of the driver for like consuming information. Like, I just want to know, I'm just going to keep knowing and gathering information, and then one day I'll feel better. Our body, when we slow down and we build awareness and we just spend time noticing, like in that portal of the body, in that way of knowing, there's so much wisdom, there's so much insight, there's so much just like felt sense of what our needs are, of what's true for us, of what the next right thing is, of where our boundaries are, where our no is, where our yes is, where delight and pleasure and enjoyment lives. And so, man, I just think it is so powerful to do embodiment work, to do somatic work. And what I mean by embodiment and somatic work, it's not just like working with somatic therapists, even though that can be a way you do it. It's dance, it's running, it's yoga, it's moving our bodies in ways where we're connecting in with our body's experience, right? We're connecting in with our felt sense. And from there, that's where this self-knowing can happen, this internal resourcing where we're asking ourselves the questions of like, what do I know now? That's one of my favorite questions after any sort of movement workshop, any sort of time, even on my own, of using movement and embodied awareness to connect more deeply with myself, is doing some sort of embodied practice and then practicing some stillness and sitting with myself and asking myself, what do I know now on the other side of this practice? So like, what do I know that I didn't know 15 minutes ago before I did this yoga flow? What did I know? What do I know now that I didn't know before I did this dance progression? And so that can be a really great question to ask if you're wanting to work with this doorway of the body into more self-knowing. So I could talk about this for hours, which I will refrain from doing today, but this has been so top of mind for me, so present as I've been working with these themes of formula versus ritual this week. It's been coming up for clients, and so I wanted to just name it here, start talking about it. And I'm going to put some of this on social media too. So if you do have thoughts and want to engage there and write some comments on how this is coming up for you, I'd love to hear about it. So that's all I have for you today. I am going to add as a special bonus this week, a core self meditation. So a little short meditation that you can do to build some ritual around connecting with your core self and building relationship with your own knowing. So if you're interested in that, take a look on the podcast because it will be there soon. All right, my friends, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.